Welcome. Well, you are at home with Jim and Joy, and you are an important part of our EWTN family. And you know, we would love to hear from you. All you need to do is send us an email, jimandjoy@ewtn.com. Well, I say a blessed happy Lent to all of you. Amen. And I just want to let you know this weekend, April 1st, I'm going to be sharing up at St. Philip's Church, Catholic Church. There's a fabulous women's conference happening up there.
Nashville, Tennessee?
It's in Franklin, Tennessee, St. Philip's Catholic Church. And so if you're in that area, go to their website and see
it's
if
a women's gathering?
It's a women's gathering, about 800 to 1,000 women they're expecting.
And one guy, I'm going to go.
You're going to be there because you're going to work the table, but it'll be fun. But during Lent, I did want to share just a great story that happened yesterday. Well, two great things happened yesterday. One, in the state of Alabama yesterday, we were part of a program called the Baby Box. And you could go to the university, it's called babyboxuniversity.com, where we give out baby boxes with a mattress and diapers and wipes to moms. They take a little test online, and then we're a distributing place. And so we had girls coming for them, and it was so beautiful. Alabama, sad to say, has one of the highest infant mortality rates. And so this was one way. It's a worldwide operation. Baby box.
So these are simple boxes. It sounds a little strange, like you're going to put a baby in a box. It's a nice box. It doesn't take the place of a bassinet or a crib, but it's used for about 5 months, and is to prevent sudden infant death, and you know, kids
sleeping
rolling
with
the way.
Your baby.
So it's sleeping properly. And you're all set up for the first 5 months before you can move on to something else, and hopefully it'll cut back on the infant mortality rate.
Yeah, so we got to participate in that. We were one of the first centers in the state of Alabama to do that. It originally started in New Jersey. We're the third state in the nation to participate in it. Pretty excited about it, having clients come in through it.
Which is another beautiful thing. So our Pregnancy Medical Center, where we help girls in crisis pregnancy to choose life, we're distributing these.
Right.
Notice they're not being distributed to places like Planned Parenthood, because we're about babies and having babies and supporting women through that process, after the process. So hopefully pregnancy medical centers, crisis pregnancy centers all over the country, throughout the world, can help little babies get off to a good, safe start.
Yeah, and then yesterday I was at my desk and a client walked in with her mom, and they were like, oh, it must have been Joy, it must have been Joy. So they came and they got me and they said, Joy, somebody's here to see you. And you know, we saw 1,000 clients last year. It was a lot of clients, and I met personally with many of them. And so the client came in, she came back to say thank you. And it's just fuel for the journey when they do that, because...
So this is a woman who was in crisis pregnancy. Was she thinking about abortion?
Yes.
Okay. So she came back to say thank you. Was she alone?
She came with her mom and a fellow co-worker, and she was all dressed up in her uniform. She didn't bring her baby with her. Okay. There was another client who came later in the day with the baby, but she came in her uniform, because one of the things that we tell of our clients is, you know, I know that you're in an unplanned pregnancy, but we want you to know this isn't the end of the story, and that God has a plan for your life. It's going to be okay. And so she chose life. We did her ultrasound, loved on her, told her the truth. She went back to school, finished, and she was bringing me pictures of her baby. It was just a happy, happy day. So great rewards for all of you out there who support pregnancy medical centers.
Support them. They're
doing great work, and I just wanted to say thank you for all the mothers who chose
Especially
life.
during spring break and going into the summer. You know, find out the Pregnancy Medical Center in your community, your town. Offer your resources. Pray for them. Offer yourself to volunteer, maybe a little spring, summer project, especially with your children. It's a great place to go. They'll get to hear about this wonderful work of love for preborn children, for mothers in crisis pregnancy, post-abortion healing work. And I guess we want to underline what you were saying, Joy, about that one who came back.
Right.
Isn't the story of the lepers, I think, you know, and one came back. And Jesus said, you know, weren't there 10? But one came back. And especially during the season of Lent, we're a little bit past midway now. Keep going with the promises that you've made. If you fall down, get back up. But maybe in this closing week, just say thank you to Almighty God. Or call your mother, call your grandmother, call somebody who's sown something really good into your life. Don't be thinking about the people who haven't said thank you to you. Give somebody a call, say thank you, and thank Almighty God. Joy, our guest tonight.
Well, today we have a beautiful young lady. Her name is Octavia Ratiu, and she is with the Austin chapter president of Young Catholic Professionals. Have you ever heard of them? Well, you're going to hear about them today. You can go to their website, youngcatholicprofessionals.org. We're going to have a wonderful interview. She's going to tell us all about those millennials of Catholics who are out there who are saying, Lord, what am I supposed to do with my gifts and my talents? How do we get support, and how do we make a
They're
difference?
millennials who want to change the world. We need them. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Welcome back. Well, you always hear me say that you are an important part of our family, and I mean it, and we would love to hear from you. If you have a question for our beautiful guest today, Octavia Ratiu, you can give us a call during this live broadcast at 1-800-221-9460. If you're calling outside of North America, you can reach us at area code 205-271-2980. You can always send us an email, Jim and Joy at EWTN.com, and hopefully we will use your very smart question right here on the air. Well, today I'm with the beautiful Octavia Ratiu. Now, she is the Austin chapter president of Young Catholic Professionals. She's a millennial. She's Catholic. Can they go together? Can you be that? Can you be hip and right? And giving God all your best.
That's a good slogan for you. Can you be hip and right? Young Catholic
Oh,
Professionals?
yeah, that's a good bumper sticker idea.
you
Thanks
go.
for that, Joy.
Well, Octavia, we want you to tell our family at home about you, just a little bit about where you were raised, where you were educated, your spiritual journey, and then how you got to be the chapter president of the Young Catholic Professionals.
Sure. Well, first, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's an honor to be here. I was born and raised in Austin, Texas, very proud Austinite. And it's just me and my little brother, Victor. But our parents emigrated from Romania, so Eastern Europe, and they came over to escape the communist regime there, where their families were persecuted. So like many other immigrants, they came to this country for a better life for themselves and for their children.
What year was that, approximately?
I would say late 70s. Yeah, late 70s they came. So yeah, I ended up meeting here and then moved to Austin, and I was born, my brother was born 2 years later, and yeah, they raised us with a very personal sense of faith. Both of them had extremely difficult lives that, you know, I, being blessed to be born here, can't relate to, and on some level. But you know, one thing led to another, and I ended up going to the University of Notre Dame. So go Irish. My little brother went there too.
You're such a good Irish girl.
So good. And there I majored in, they have a great books program. It's called the Program of Liberal Studies. So yeah, I spent my time doing that, and also pre-med because I wanted to go to medical school. So it was a wonderful place to kind of come of age, and that was where I got my actually first exposure to the intellectual tradition of the church. Reading Augustine and Aquinas, even authors outside the church like Dostoevsky, just realizing that God attracts us through beauty in many different ways. So when I finished at Notre Dame, I had a very brief stint in medical school. It was like 6 months, and then I was like, no.
One of your parents is a physician?
Yeah, my mom is a physician. So that was God speaking to me very quickly that was not my vocation. So I hightailed it out of there and ended up working at the Witherspoon Institute in Princeton, New Jersey. It's kind of a nonprofit research center, does pro-life work as well as like the anti-porn movement. And then from there, I moved to Washington, D.C. to get my master's in psychology at the Institute for Psychological Sciences, which is a Catholic grad school. And after that, I decided it was time to come home to Austin, and worked as a writer and editor, freelanced for a bit, and now I work in marketing in the software industry. So it's been a
Well, I was really impressed that you could recall all that. I'm glad you didn't ask us to recall our, journey. So you did a great job. So where did you connect with young Catholic professionals? Where does that fit into your journey? How did that take place?
So when I moved back to Austin, I found myself in a position where I hadn't really connected with my faith when I was growing up. And so when I came back, it was my city, but I didn't know the sort of Catholic scene there.
When you say you didn't connect with your Catholic faith, do you consider that true even through your time at Notre Dame? Not that it's Notre Dame is difficult, but I'm saying, like, because you talked about the classes you took and learning about beauty.
Right.
And stuff. Was there something still missing then in terms of the connectivity then, or was it earlier on that you're speaking about?
Yeah, I didn't really come into my faith even in college. Notre Dame was a wonderful, wonderful environment, and I think I came to it, as I said, through, music and art and novels and all that. But in terms of a spiritual renewal, I actually didn't have that really until Pope Francis was elected a couple years later, and the beauty that I saw in that. Because I'd always been a fan of Pope Benedict, but I think that both of them express such interesting different facets of the same Orthodox teachings, and so it was.
What drew you with Pope Francis? What was there unique about him or beautiful there that made you connect spiritually, in your inner person?
I think with Pope Francis, it was the image of, the world as a battlefield, and, Christ as the physician of life, and we come to Christ as we do, sick people to a doctor, and his emphasis on upholding the same, the dogmas and doctrines of the church, but starting above and beyond with love and mercy. And it was especially last year through the year of mercy that I experienced an even greater transformation in faith.
Yeah. You're talking, I'm thinking of, I hope I'm right here because it's live TV, but the Vatican, St. Peter's, and I guess it's the Bernini arms, so to speak, that come out. I'm thinking as you're sharing, that really is a Pope Francis thing, like for the world and for those out on the margins and for those, it's just like that's what he's kind of about. It's just like saying, extend the arms of Christ, extend the arms of the church out to everyone, especially those who are the farthest away. That kind of thing is very appealing. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And the beauty of one of his statements was the church is a hospital, and that we're all sick, and that's the place where we come to get well. And who makes us well? Well, hopefully it's Jesus in the Eucharist. And it's the encounter of the Eucharist where we encounter Christ and we have Jesus inside of us, who then can heal our brokenness emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And to see that kind of goes, okay, I can go. Because there's an illusion that one must be perfect to come to church.
It qualifies you for help, but it calls you to help.
Yeah.
It's beautiful at the same time. So I'm going to get the help that I need, but I can't stay there. I'm called to mission. Those who are forgiven much love much, or whatever you got. So that started just connected you.
Yeah, and I think the church has such a robust conception of sin, in that it.
I've never heard it put that way. That's good though. I like that. A robust conception of sin. That's good.
Yeah, it just you don't become perfect or a saint in this, freeze-dried moment of grace, and that's really hard for our culture, which is about the instantaneous. It's about
Yes.
you know, having things now. And what has always struck me when I finally chose to be Catholic was that, you know, we're all pilgrims. We're progressing through this stage, and the only way we're going to make it through is within community.
That's
You're
interesting.
not going
So
to do it
you were
alone.
baptized and confirmed in the church, right? But you say here, when I chose to become Catholic, which is, I think it's both of those things, you know? It's like we're born again by water and the Spirit. You didn't choose it. That's what we believe as Catholics. You receive that through baptism as an infant. But that's what confirmation is about. That's what being bar mitzvahed is for a Jew.
Right.
You know, it's like there comes a point where you have to choose. And I think that's an important element for us to remember. Yes, we're cradle Catholics in a good sense of that word, but you can't stay in the cradle. You got to choose to be an adult. You got to choose to be a mature Catholic person. That's what you're saying. You made this choice.
Yeah, and it's just like love is a choice. It's not a feeling. It's an act of the will, and to maintain your faith in a faithless world. You don't get that by just continuing in inertia or momentum. And it might work through childhood. You know, I think in talking to a lot of my fellow millennials, many of them have had similar paths where they went to church, it was the faith of their parents, and then you kind of did your own thing in college and then realized, like, oh, that's not making me happy.
Right.
That's not what beatitude is or flourishing is.
Okay.
And you know, that's, you know, so other millennials are out there, or parents of millennials who think they're never going to come back to the church. You know, that's the beauty of the journey. And you had all the sacraments, but there was some point in time in your life where you said, I, Octavia, choose to participate with all this that I know is true and right and beautiful, to the depth of it, because Jesus always calls us to a deeper place with it. And for the rest of your journey, for the rest of my journey, you know, that the beautiful thing about being Catholic is you never get it and you never arrive. There's always somebody smarter than you, and I mean, just the beauty of it all. And it's not how we start, it's how we finish. You know, and it is a marathon, and it's a beautiful journey. I always tell Jim, when I became Catholic, I'm a convert, I feel like I'm in kindergarten forever because there's so much to learn, you know, and there's so many saints and so many people who have really mastered the encounter of Jesus to their dying breath, as I too want to do.
I like what you say in terms of a decision, making a decision, which is a lot of what confirmation is supposed to be about, but sometimes it's all there, but we don't make the decision. And I guess we got to make a decision every day. There are some that might be more radical or transforming than at other times. But then you speak about love. I like both of those, a decision of, you know, studying and knowing, but love, which is also a decision, but also it's a passion. And I often talk about, you know, growing up in the Catholic Church and looking at the crucifix of Christ, you know, as a little boy growing up, and just saying, you know, well, he's God, and so what am I supposed to do? What do you want from me? You know, you're everything. And I didn't know, I put it like, that I needed to kiss him back, that he was kissing me. This was the kiss of love, and my baptism was a kiss of love, and that a lot of Catholics don't know that he doesn't need something from you, but he would like it, he wants it. He wants you to love him back. And we need to be told that. You know, like, I didn't get that part of it. I just thought he's God and the Trinity and Christ and salvation, and he's done all of this. Well, what's that got to do with me? I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it? But that I didn't get it till he says, I want you to love me. And I won't make you love me. And I won't infringe upon your free will. So I just like both of what you're saying, decision and love. And you get that, then you're caught.
Right.
So now the Lord's got you, the church has got you. And where are you at this point in your life, and how does that lead to young Catholic professionals, or how's that work?
Yeah, it was just an urgency when I recognized that this was something I wanted to be serious about. There wasn't any formula to get there, and once I did that, I realized that moving back to Austin, in a city that wasn't my home, it was the home of my childhood, there was no way I could make it home without reconnecting with the church. And I just started going to events. and, having speakers and happy hours. It was when I started getting involved last year, it was the first year for this national movement called Young Catholic Professionals.
Okay. Well, lay out for us again, Young Catholic Professionals. So it's a pretty new organization. What are the, what's the mission of it? What are the components of it? Because it sounds like something that's, really could be very profound in the transformation of young professional people, but also the renewal of the church and renewal of local communities,
right.
and on and on and on. So what is it about? What does it look like?
Yeah, it's a nonprofit that started in Dallas in 2010, I believe, and there are four full-time staffed there in the Dallas office. And between 2010 and now, it's grown to 15 different cities across 9 different states. And the mission, what the executive director, Jen Baugh, said, it was Pope Benedict's call that even though there's trouble in the world, and there's always going to be trouble, you can take heart that the next generation of Catholics, are preparing themselves and steeling themselves to take over, really. And so for her, that's what caused her to leave, a lucrative career in finance to start Young Catholic Professionals. And then the Austin chapter only started last year.
Yeah, well, it's great to hear Pope Emeritus, Benedict say that. And I remember when he was first coming into his reign, so to speak, he really spoke a lot about the church is going to get smaller. And we had John Paul II, St. John Paul II. And for me, St. John Paul II was like, well, everybody in the world, we're going to go out to everybody in the world. We're going to invite them all in. I felt like big, like really big, and so many people, and everybody's going to come. And then Benedict came in and said, he had a different perspective,
Sure.
So I think he thinks, well, a lot of people are going to come, but we're going to get smaller. Like people need to get smaller, and there's going to be cell groups, and you're really going to know your faith. And again, he's coming out of living through Nazi Germany and communism, and I'm just thinking about Young Catholic Professionals. There's a sense in which I guess that you can grow if you really are a cell, if you're a cell group of people of common mind and common thinking and a spirituality. And I think that's how that generation, he's saying generations will be renewed, really understanding their faith and applying it out here in the world. But we might be smaller in numbers, but it's going to grow, it's going to get bigger. But we have to know what we believe and live what we believe and take it out into this world. And maybe we don't quite get that. And so we're going to get smaller in these cells and then go out. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely, Jim. And I think that focus on evangelization, that's really what crystallizes YCP. The mission is to work and witness for Christ, to be a witness to your faith in the workplace, wherever that may be. And, everyone likes their echo chambers. Like I like my echo chamber, but it doesn't make any sort of difference if you don't go past that and you don't try to introduce the faith to your local community or your citywide or statewide or wherever your vocation.
So you're talking about an echo chamber. See, that's you're a millennial. I don't know that term.
Oh, was that too hip and trendy?
Hip is my generation, But yeah, so it means like you're with the same kind of people and you're just kind of echoing the same message and everybody kind of, saying the same thing, but you're not really touching people that aren't saying, so you feel okay in there.
Right.
Yeah. And there's a distinction between that and, the I won't say robust again, but the healthy communities and conversations that you need to learn really what the faith is about. So I'm not saying that that isn't important, but someone in your 20s and 30s, especially in a metropolis like Austin, you're hopefully going to get to meet all kinds of different people, and you have to know how to talk about your faith and defend it. Right. So that's what YCP is. It's giving people sort of a resting place, after you go through the whole day, maybe, with a smile on and maybe you're doing a job you don't particularly like, but a place of nourishment.
Well, let's pause right there. speaking with Octavia Ratiu, and speaking about the millennial generation, them really being rooted and grounded in the Catholic faith and going out into the professional world. It's young Catholic professionals. More to come. Maybe you'll start up a chapter where you are. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Well, remember that we want you to be a part of our show. So if you have a question for Octavia, just give us a call during the live broadcast at 1-800-221-9460. If you're calling outside of North America, you can reach us at area code 205-271-2980. Remember that you can always send us an email, jimandjoy@ewtn.com, and hopefully we'll use your question right here.
If you're thinking about starting a chapter, that's one of my goals. I hope that there'll be more chapters of young Catholic professionals all over the country. If you're a bishop, we need your consent, that's for sure. Priest, a deacon, a young Catholic professional, all the resources are available for you to have a great success and do the work of evangelization. So please contact us.
Yes, so people might be in their parish, young adults, right? Mm-hmm. And they're trying to find they're not moms yet, they don't need to do the young moms, they're not couples, and everybody needs to fit in, right?
Right.
And so there might be some young people who are kind of just trying to find their way, maybe doing Theology on Tap or some other group in there. How different would young Catholic professionals be, and how could a group plug into your group, and what do you do?
Sure. So the structure of Young Catholic Professionals is, as I mentioned before the break, the national headquarters, which gives enormous amounts of training. Like our legal structure is all put to us by national, and these are all volunteer chapters. So what the program of YCP is for any city is executive speaker series, where you have someone from the business community who's Catholic, a faithful Catholic, coming to share their journey of how they integrated their faith with their career. So we have several of those throughout the year. Mm-hmm. Then periodic happy hours, so we can all partake. Mm-hmm. And then our patron saint is St. Joseph the Worker. So we have 2 retreats per year during Lent and Advent called St. Joseph the Worker retreats, mm-hmm. and then a variety of community service events.
So when you're saying we have that, are you talking like each local chapter would have that?
Each
or is
local
it just
chapter.
National?
Yeah, each local chapter has this schedule of all these events that are available to anyone who signs up for YCP. And then what we're moving to as a national movement are membership opportunities, where for dues-paying members you have access to mentorship, spiritual direction, career services, executive panel discussions. So it's an incredibly rich resource for anyone looking to get involved, and we see other movements like Theology on Tap, mm-hmm. or other parish-based young adult groups as absolutely integral, mm-hmm. because once YCP is sort of done evangelizing, we want to turn them back into the parishes for further formation.
Mm-hmm. That's tremendous.
Yeah.
When you share about the speakers that come periodically, are those mm-hmm. speakers locally, or does National provide them, or these people that are going on a circuit, going around to the local chapters? How do you get these speakers? If I'm starting something here in Birmingham, let's say.
Right.
So where would my speakers come from? How does it work?
So in order to encourage the sense of local community, the speakers for each chapter come from that particular city. So all our speakers last year came from Austin. I think we had one national board member who came in for that, but for the most part, it's an it's in the city, and it's the role of the president of the chapter to sort of, get connected and try to see who out there might be willing to speak to YCP.
So, do they get paid? Do you have to raise up money in the local chapter? How does it work?
No, they're not paid.
It's all volunteer.
So if I'm invited to come to speak in an event, I need to know you ain't getting paid, right? You're
right.
coming.
You're just sharing your story.
So this is really, you need to understand the concept of what we're about. We're young Catholic professionals, millennial people, and we're working, but we're still in training in terms of our own spirituality, in terms of our profession. What do you got to share with us? Because we want to be successful at that. We're seeing you as successful. You need to sow into us.
Absolutely.
That's what it's about.
Yeah. And what I've found both as a member and now as a chapter leader is we're hungry for leadership. We really are. There's been, I think, an interesting portrayal of millennials in the media that doesn't highlight our hunger for this leadership for the most part. And the conversations that I've had with people at happy hour or before and after, speakers is like, wow, I really resonated with, A, B, and C that he said.
I think that's a good place to, in terms of conversation, kind of the image of millennials.
Right.
We know what the greatest generation is. When we say the greatest generation, World War II people and so on, and we know what that's about, people who sacrifice, lay down their lives, given their lives and so on. When it comes to millennials, you're right. I mean, it's kind of like, what are they exactly about, and are they a little wimpy, and they need safe places to go every place.
They call you snowflakes, but you're no snowflake.
Right, but so you can stereotype, so
Right,
really, not all
right.
millennials are like that, and we can fall into that. Every generation has its things, but what you're saying is, well, number one, I would say, if you're going to complain about millennials, get to know some, because they're all kind of different. Number
Right.
two, maybe you're right, that there are a number of them for whatever reason that might not be that aggressive for the things that we believe in. Then here's an opportunity to speak into their lives, because you're saying, hey, a lot of millennials are really hungry. They're not satisfied.
Yeah.
They may come across like they're just kind of like spoiled or whatever, they got everything and this and that. But they're yearning, right?
And that's exactly the word I was going to use, is yearning. And this characterizes any, member of the body of Christ, is this yearning for the infinite in a finite body. But I think especially amongst millennials, a lot of us are lonely. People are getting married later. The most recent statistic I read, less than 17% of millennials identify as Catholics. And I think, especially in my generation, whether you were raised by religious parents or not, you're going through your life at the beginning and you're just searching. And so the church, and going back to that quote by Pope Emeritus Benedict, the onus is on us within the church to represent the words of Christ and the traditions of the faith and the magisterium to the world. It's not, that the world persecutes us and then that's it. We really, so I think as millennials, I especially feel called to get to know my faith as well as possible, to spread it around with others, because I can't do it alone. We're not supposed to do it alone.
It's good.
Well, we have a great email, and it says, faith seems to play a different role in the lives of millennials than it did for their parents or grandparents. Many I have spoken to don't place much emphasis on their faith, although they haven't abandoned it. How would you suggest re-engaging those that are concentrating on a more secular view of life? And this is Angie from Canton, Georgia.
That's a really good question, Angie. I probably talk about this question, on a weekly basis with my team. What are we doing to reach those, members of the Austin community who are either fallen away or are completely secular? And the answer to that is through community. If you come to our events, and let's say I grew up at a school, at a non-religious school, and a lot of my childhood friends are atheist.
Right.
I made it a point last year to bring one of them to every event that I could. And I wouldn't start with a spiritual retreat with them.
Right.
I would just start with a happy hour and just say, hey, we're fun. We're
a happy group.
Come get to know us.
See, I didn't even think that you would be inviting people that weren't Catholic to any event. See,
absolutely. Well, I'm
great.
trying to focus.
I was thinking that the professionals, as they go out and working in the world, because that's in their organizations, will be touching people of different views and so on, and you can get to propose Catholicism. But you're saying even to some of your events, you can invite people that aren't necessarily Catholic.
Well, they're open. Yeah, they're open to all young professionals, and the quality of our speakers is such that what they say resonates with anyone who's passionate about finding and living a good life.
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the important things, our hearts are all crying, and our hearts are restless, St. Augustine said, until they rest in him. And so no matter what generation we're from, that's the one, we share that as humans, right? Made in the image and likeness of God, and that we all want to be known, we all want to belong. And whatever group that we're in, we want somebody to know us. And the beautiful thing about being in church and having your place where you're going to grow, where you're going to belong, but the great hope that you're going to invite somebody into. We don't do that real well as Catholics. I mean, I can remember as Protestants, we were always inviting somebody to church.
Yes.
It was like, come to my house. I mean, it was like, come on in.
Your house was the church.
My house was the church. I was the pastor's wife.
Well, in a sense, it is the domestic church, but I mean, it could really
But you know
indeed
what
go
I'm
through.
saying? I mean, it doesn't, we don't need to make it separate because we're body, mind, and spirit, so it's a part of us. And then you want your witness to be, not that you want to be dropping, spiritual jargon all the time, in a normal, healthy way in a conversation where somebody goes, Octavia, how did you arrive at that conclusion? Like, where did you get that from? Where did you get that belief or value from? So then you could speak into it and say, well, come and see, come and be with some of my friends. They're not so bad.
If I'm starting a chapter in Birmingham, or the people who are going to start chapters out there, how many events would there be a month for me or for other people to attend? Does it vary chapter per chapter, or is it you meet once a month, once every 3 months? How often do you meet?
So one of the distinguishing characteristics of YCP is that we meet a couple times a month.
Okay.
So there's really, really good focus on building an authentic community. So for the Austin chapter, and it varies slightly by chapter, we have monthly speakers, bi-monthly happy hours, trying to have our retreats quarterly, and then for the people who are on the leadership team, we have meetings every other week. So,
what are some of the things that the speakers are addressing? I could tell you what I would want to address. I'd want to speak into how you can successfully, be a family person, married, family, and be successful, at business, what it takes to do that, priorities in that, don't lose your marriage and your family at the cost of your business, sewing back into the community.
right.
I'd want people coming in that are saying, I'm successful and I tithe or I do whatever, and I'm sewing back into the communities. Have grit, you don't have to, pigeonhole somebody, but, know who you are, stand for your faith in the marketplace, propose the faith, don't cower back. This is a tough world, things like that. Are they saying that?
Do you want to come be a speaker in Austin?
because we want to stop
I'd love
saying,
to hear
we want to
that.
stop saying, well, Catholic millennials are not wimps, they're militant. Okay, that might be too much for you. No, we need militant Catholic people. They don't walk around saying I'm militant, but they're aggressive about their faith and about their integrity and about their morality and about how they run a business and about what they do with the money that they make, and that they understand making money is a part of what we do. We don't shy away from that, but it's not the whole thing. We're not going to lose our lives making money. I'm not going to lose my marriage and my family, and I'm going to give away. I'm not bound to this money. I mean, all those issues are so important for young millennial Catholic people to be inspired in that way.
That's why we're so confused confused. We're just thinking about all this stuff all the
Well, I'm
time.
going to take away all the confusion. No, but you got people, I bet you got
Right.
people coming in, like successful Catholic business
Yeah.
people that have had successes and failures and have done the dumb things and are coming and saying, I could tell you because I've done dumb things and I've done good things. These are the good things. And here's how you can be supported in doing the right things.
Absolutely. We've had incredible storytellers. You know, our current board chairman addressed YCP last year, and he started by saying, you know, I was driving down an icy road, you know, my 2 kids were in the back, and I flipped, and that's when I came to God.
Right.
You know, and everyone's just like, you know, hooked,
Right.
you know, from that point.
Good.
And, you know, we had the bishop address us, it was actually right after the election in November, so that was just packed. We had it at the cathedral downtown, just sort of immigration issues and, you know, how do you go about talking to your family and friends
Great.
about
Right,
politics.
right.
Others we had one talk on dating, you know, how do you
Right.
date, and if you're just upset about the fact that you're not married yet, you know, what are some, you know, coping skills with that. So it's just a lot of the issues that
great.
we're
You need that.
struggling with, and then also wanting to build careers and have it all. I know that everyone's talking about that and who can have it all and who
That's
can't.
a lie. You
Yeah.
can't have it all.
Yeah.
Or not all at once.
You can have it all in time, but you can't have it all at once.
Right.
You might have it all when you're 85.
85.
90.
This is my theory.
Then you
this
can
is
have
my
it.
theory in life. What happens?
But then you know what
is-
happens? Then you pass away.
Then you don't.
Because you have it all
Just
and then
when
you
you master all those relationships of being a wife and
Yeah.
a mother and a mother-in-law
I got it all.
and a daughter-in-law, just when you got, I'm really good with everybody, you die.
You're done.
That's what I think.
But you're ready to go to see the
But then
Lord.
you're ready because you died to yourself. You learn to live for everybody else.
And then you get to go to heaven.
And then you get to go spend the rest of your time with
Amen.
Jesus and have a great party.
And you know, that's great. I mean, that would be a great talk for the millennials of young Catholic professionals. You know, 'cause
Yeah.
they know that. Joe, we have another email.
Okay, it says, when I was in college, I had many friends who were spiritual, but disliked organized religion. They said it was too ritualized, too corporate, and the Catholic Church was the worst with all her rules. How can I speak to people like this to convince them that Christ founded his church on earth and he wants us all to unite together in his church? And this is Oscar from Red Lake, Minnesota.
One thing, young Catholic professionals love corporate.
Right. Oscar, that's a really good question. I struggle with that all the time, living in a city like Austin and keep Austin weird. And there are a lot of people there who are spiritual but not religious.
Right.
Wow.
So I can only speak to my struggle and how I've dealt with it, that the church is not a list of dry rules and you can't do this and you can't do that. It is about, well, as you just said, dying to yourself, love and mercy. And if you approach and proselytize by starting with love and mercy, and then you have the rules, and they just come through it organically, then you might have a better way of reaching your friends who view the church in that way.
Yeah, I think it's both and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's both and. Now, I know you mentioned St. Joseph and the prayer of St. Joseph that you use.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share a little bit of that prayer, whether you read the whole thing or a part of that prayer? So you say a prayer to St. Joseph for workers?
Yeah,
This is a
St. Joseph the Worker, since he's our patron saint, we close every speaker series with this prayer to him, because his perseverance and patience in the face of a world that doesn't sit still or doesn't know the value of patience, it really gives us inspiration. So.
Great.
And he's a great saint to pray
He
to.
is a great saint.
I think it's up on the prompter, too. There it is.
Oh, okay.
You got it on the prompter. Go ahead.
Yeah. Joseph, by the work of your hands and the sweat of your brow, you supported Jesus and Mary and had the Son of God as your fellow worker. Teach me to work as you did, with patience and perseverance, for God and for those whom God has given me to support. Teach me to see in my fellow workers the Christ who desires to be in them, that I may always be charitable and forbearing towards all. Grant me to look upon work with the eyes of faith, so that I shall recognize in it my share in God's own creative activity and in Christ's work of our redemption, and so take pride in it. When it is pleasant and productive, remind me to give thanks to God for it. And when it is burdensome, teach me to offer it to God in reparation for my sins and the sins of the world.
I love it.
Great prayer.
We're going to
Good
take
one.
a break
Yeah.
at this point. More to come. Young Catholic professionals, why aren't you a part of it? Start a chapter right where you are. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Well, you are an important part of our family, and you know that you can join us live right here on At Home. Today, we have an audience, and they're from all over the place. You could be a member. So what we'd like for you to do is contact the EWTN Pilgrimage Department. You can email them, pilgrimages@ewtn.com. Give them a jingle at 205-271-2966.
Joy, I wanna say
Alabama
something.
is absolutely
We
beautiful
have
right
at least
now.
3 couples that
Yes.
are married 50 years and over. What a great, great
Thank you,
blessing.
Jesus.
We love to hear from people married for decades, 50 years and over. We love especially that you're here. One couple was saying for years they've been trying to come but finally made it. Don't put off coming. We hear from other couples and they really wish that they had made it. So let's go to Joan in Rome. Joan, to you.
Well, greetings from Rome to all of you at home. And I think you know that recently Pope Francis spent a day in Milan. And I want to bring to you today some of his words on topics of great interest to us. And of course, that's the family and young people. Now, some of his best words came at the very end of the day when he was in a stadium filled with 80,000 people, most of whom were young people. And perhaps his most startling words came on bullying, which it seems is also a problem in Italy. Now, the Pope called this an ugly phenomenon today in education, and he asked young people to do a favor for him and for Jesus. He said, please promise me, never make fun of, never mock a friend, a neighbor, or anyone else. And he said, do you promise this? They screamed out a yes, but he asked again and got a huge round of applause. Now, one boy asked Francis what helped him grow close to Jesus when he was young. And Francis said basically 3 things: my grandparents, the parish, and playing with my friends. He said, grandparents have the wisdom of life, and with that wisdom, they teach us to grow close to Christ. And the Pope said, talk to your grandparents. Ask them any questions you want to, but be sure you listen to them as well. Now, on playing with his friends, he said, when you play well with others, you learn to respect people. You learn to be a team. You learn to work together, and this too can unite us to Jesus. And then on parish life, he said, this is absolutely crucial to your faith life. But he urged young people, half jokingly, he said, I wish you were as enthusiastic for Mass as you are for your friends and your activities. Now, one couple asked the Pope how to transmit the beauty of the faith to their children without sounding boring, annoying, or authoritarian. And Pope Francis simply questioned them right back. He said, who was it that taught you to know and love your faith? Chances are it was the parish and also was your parents. So great words from Pope Francis, but time's up, so back to you at home.
Thank you so much, Joan. Always a good report there from Joan, and so much thinking there about communication, about teaching. And I think we started off our show speaking about the importance of this generation, the millennial generation, being impacted by the true gospel and taking it into the world. So just underline that for us about young Catholic professionals, the goal, the mission, how important it is for this generation, the impact it's going to have maybe after we've passed on, what's going to be happening into the world if we have, you know, strong Catholic professionals, or if we just have those that are just kind of like going along with the culture.
Sure. Yeah, the mission of young Catholic professionals, aside from working in witness for Christ, is, it's threefold. It's to foster Catholic identity, encourage authentic community, and inspire others to action. So I think we're all guided by this, whether we're chapter leaders or members or board members. We're all really working for the same mission, which is to spread the word of Christ in the best ways that we know how. And again, it's much easier doing that in a community and in a strong community. So, all the information to start a new chapter is on our website, and we're just hoping to spread it far and wide.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As we have Catholic professionals, I guess the value, the dignity of the human person, as you are a professional, those that you're associating with, is something that is really emphasized in our Catholic tradition. Mm-hmm. Is this being formed within these young Catholic professionals, and they're taking it out to their workplaces?
Absolutely. The sacredness of human relationship, being in relationship, when you have a God who is love, you have the personalism of Pope John Paul II, it infuses everything that you do. If you're trying to see in the other person, not the other, but what makes you the same. Mm-hmm. So, with Catholics, it's easy to find things that you have in common. When you have people who aren't Catholic that you're talking to, you just have to find that kernel, which is the fact that we're all persons.
Well, Octavia, thank you so much for being with us. And really, this has been a great message of hope. God bless you. God bless young Catholic professionals. Hope to have you back on. I hope this was an encouragement to you. It is to me. There's a lot of talk going on about millennials. And here's an association, Young Catholic Professionals, that you can be a part of, start a chapter right where you are, that is empowering young millennials to embrace Christ and the church, their faith, the dignity of the person, to go into their various professions and to transform the country, to transform the world, and to renew the church. God bless you. Remember, you're an important part of this family. You're always at home with Jim and Joy. Bye now.